Let's talk about the Icelandic prison system. If you are a prisoner in Iceland right now, then things appear to be looking up right now. Except for the fact that you're in prison, which undoubtedly sucks. But I have an article here in Morgunblaðið. It's a more than a month old article, I just didn't have time to get to it until now. But the amount of prisoners, people in prison each time has actually been going down in the past few years, whereas more people are doing community service. I'll have the raw numbers on the screen here. But in other words, the focus in the Icelandic correctional system right now is to get many of the low-level offenders out of prison and doing community work instead of them, serving their time in a jail cell, where they are, unfortunately, often taking up space for either more serious offenders or actually that doesn't quite work like that. If you work like that, obviously a serious offender, let's say murderer, sexual offender, or a violent thug or something like that. If a person like that gets convicted, they get thrown in prison pretty much right away. Whereas all these low-level offenders, say repeat traffic violators, minor thieves, and just all sorts of low-life scumbags that are not that dangerous, but just kind of scummy. They very often have to wait after being convicted until there is room available in one of Iceland's prison. So yeah, in other words, in Iceland you can get arrested and sentenced and then released back into society, and then you have to wait before you actually start your sentence. And in recent years a lot of sentences were being commuted because such a long time had passed since the sentencing took place until room was available in a prison, that a lot of criminals were eventually simply let off the hook because there is a period in which they are allowed to wait, and after that their sentence gets commuted automatically. In other words, the system was commuting a criminal simply because they didn't have enough room. In case you're curious, the Icelandic prison system as a whole can house up to, at max capacity, 198 inmates. But max capacity levels are rarely reached. But as of August 14th this year, the current prison population has gone down to 158, down from 180 just 5 years ago. Whereas the amount of prisoners doing community service has gone up from 105 back in 2014 to 210 this year. Actually 105, 210, meaning it has quite literally doubled. I know math! Now there is this myth going on in Iceland that sometimes like a serious criminal will get let off the hook because there was no space available, but no, the system prioritizes. Like they don't let, like I said, violent thugs or murderers or whatever get away with not getting to prison. If it's a serious offender, then he is prioritized to be sentenced to prison right away. It's just common sense at work here. So the people that were that had their sentences completely written off were always low-level offenders. And a few years ago there were up to, I think when it reached absolute records, there were between 40 or 50 sentences being written off each year, maybe even more. And that has gone down to only 7 as of this year, or as of the writing of this article. So that is quite significant. And the waiting list for these low-level prisoners has gone down from 600 plus inmates to below 500. And prison authorities are confident in that pretty soon by next year possibly no sentences would be absolutely commuted, which I find to be absolutely great news. Not so great news for these poor bastards who thought that they might escape the punishment, but yeah. Additionally, the Icelandic government has also decided to pour more money into psychiatric help for inmates. In the past 2 years, I believe 4 inmates committed suicide in Icelandic prisons. And prisoners and associations to the human rights of prisoners have often condemned the Icelandic prison system for not providing enough psychiatric help. As you can imagine, people who are sentenced to prison often don't have the most stable minds and often need a lot of psychiatric help. So this is also good news in this sense, is that hopefully fewer of them will now be released and be, you know, just in the same mental spot where they were when they were sentenced. It should also be noted that having more inmates serving community service as opposed to prison also lowers the cost of the prison system as a whole, meaning more money can be allocated elsewhere. This is partially the reason why the government has lowered funds for the prison system as a whole by 14 million kronor, which is peanuts, by the way. Like, I saw this one news story where they're talking about critiquing the government over lowering funds, but if the prison population has gone down from 180 prisoners down to 150 something, then 14 million kronor is a very little reduction in funds, so pretty much more money allocated for each individual prisoner. Now, you may be wondering, if you're not from Iceland or just don't know what it's actually like to be in prison in Iceland. Well, it just so happens that I have never been in prison, so I don't rightfully know. But I don't know, maybe some of these images and footage will tell you some about it. Now, I do happen to know a few people that went to prison, and actually, funny story. A few months ago I was at a local bar here, a very shady bar that's kind of a hangout spot for all the local drug addicts and dealers in this area. And there was a guy there that I'd never seen before. I asked him, "Hey, I've never seen you here before, been here, what's your name?" And he introduced himself, and he told me that the reason I'd never seen him was because he just got out of prison. And then another guy from the bar came and was like, "Hey, you were in prison? I don't remember seeing you." And the first guy I talked to, the guy I talked to said, "I was in Holmseiði. Were you in Litlahraun?" And the other's like, "Yeah." So Holmseiði is Iceland's newest prison, and it's also part of the reason why there are fewer people waiting to be serve their time, is because the new facility at Holmseiði is pretty large, and so now we have more space for all of our scumbags, so we don't have to keep them walking around. But anyway, these two prisoners started to argue very heatedly in whether or not it was better to serve time in Litlahraun or in Holmseiði. And the conclusion that I got was that in Litlahraun you have more outdoor activities available. You know, obviously if you look at these pictures here, very large open space outside of the prison for them to roam around, I suppose. Whereas in Holmseiði, according to this prisoner that I met at this bar, the food is way better. He said that he gained several kilos while staying there simply because, you know, there were like lamb chops and steaks and just gourmet meals every day. Yeah, apparently in Holmseiði prisoners cook for themselves, like all the inmates in one particular block, say 10-15 inmates, will cook for, you know, the whole block, and I don't know, take turns or whatever. Whereas I believe in Litlahraun there's just a kitchen that services everybody, and so the quality of food in Holmseiði at least is quite nice. So if you ever get the chance to decide where you want to serve your time, then yes, you can. I would recommend Holmseiði for the food. Although I've heard also that the prison of Akureyri is supposed to be very luxurious, almost like a 3-star hotel. And the prison in the Kvíabryggja probably has the most beautiful view of any prison anywhere in the world. However, the only way to be locked up at Kvíabryggja is if you are a non-violent offender. Sometimes child molesters get sent there because they have a high risk of being brutalized by other criminals in other prisons. So yeah, if you're If you're a child molester or a white-collar criminal or something of that sort, or a forger, then maybe you can look forward to serving your time in the beautiful, picturesque landscape under Kirkjufell at Kvíabryggja. Wonderful. So yeah, Icelandic prisons are not quite as luxurious as and maybe you've heard about Norwegian prisons, where the known terrorist and mass murderer Andres Breivik once sued the Norwegian government because he was not allowed to have a PlayStation and an Xbox. It's not quite like that in Iceland. Like, yeah, prisoners in Litlahraun and Holmsey, they often get to have gaming computers and stuff in their cells, but as far as I know, they have to provide these things for themselves. How exactly that works, I'm not sure, but hey. But yeah, we can at least add prison reforms on a list of things that the Icelandic government is doing right. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.